officer of PSAP.
Thank you. Sort of gave you an update on this project last week. We just want to keep it forefront. John, Irwin, and I he's been assisting me with this, and I appreciate his help very much. I'm a optimistic, glass half full kind of guy, and I don't think John would be offended if I say he tends to be a glass half empty kind of a guy. So between us, you can really get all the sides of the story. So we actually had a conference call just a couple of hours ago. We're working on this project. So a couple of pieces of good news have come in. We talked about a $500,000 or $600,000 project versus about $300,000 available in our 911 funds right now. The last 2 or 3 years, we've been averaging about $150,000 a year from the state in 911 funds, and we've been spending 120 or so thousand. We pay for, mostly it's maintenance equipment on the radio equipment and the maintenance contracts, and then we pay half of the 911 mapping staff salary. We pay out of that. So we've been putting about 20 or 30,000 a year basically into the account. The good news is that for this year, we're projected to get about 200,000 in 911 funds. We shouldn't have an extra $50,000 or so above. So that'll help as that builds up as we get closer to the project end and as we want to upgrade equipment possibly in future years. So at this point, again, we talked about getting updated estimates and proposals so we can actually purchase equipment by mid-February. We're still on track for that. We have one proposal for the radio equipment due next week, and hopefully the telephone proposal will be in next week as well, and then we can proceed on that. But things are going along fairly smoothly at this point. So, and Mr. Irwin, if you want to add anything, feel free.
One of the things that struck me today was whenever we lost, I believe it was Fender Mountain, whenever we lost that tower site, we were forced to go to another tower. Previous to that, we were spending $1,500 a year for tower space for those antennas. Right now, we do not have the coverage. The radio communications are weak at best, and we are spending $14,500 a year, I believe we said.
So it's $1,400 a month, so that's roughly $17,000 a year. Yeah.
The equipment in our primary PSAP has reached the end of its life expectancy. We have to have this backup in. It's got to be in by midnight, operational by 30 June. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
If it is not in and operational on midnight, 30 June, and we have spent $200,000, we get no 911 money. We have forfeited it because we are on a year extension right now. Now, one thing that I find striking is what is the input from Ms. Irwin, the supervisor of 911, and the sheriff. He controls that 911. Does he, we had any discussions with him with the equipment that and they talked the equipment and the work that we are proposing?
Yeah, I had a lengthy meeting with the sheriff a couple of weeks ago. He certainly, he's been helpful and cooperative with the project. Again, I don't want to speak for him, but we certainly, and Ms. Williams upstairs, our mapping coordinator, she has been very helpful with me as well as working with the funds and things like that. She fills out our report annually for the state, accumulating our funds. It's odd, we'll never get 100% of this project paid for because 911 is like they'll pay for the jack, but they won't pay for the cord that goes down. I mean, they break it down kind of odd, but I think we'll probably wind up 90% of the project covered, hopefully, but we're going to have some out-of-pocket money on it. So
as we started working towards this project, though, whenever we have our getaway, this is something that we have really got to sit down and talk about, in my opinion. because as we started purchasing and installing equipment and looking at where it's going to go, if we are going to make any other changes, I would love to see 911 become a separate entity altogether so that we can do some improvements. Right now, there's no quality assurance, no quality improvement process going on in that system. But as we are getting ready to spend money on a backup courtroom, and the other things that are going to be involved, we can lump all this together and hopefully get the secondary PSAP in, look to modernizing and improving the primary PSAP, and also with movements, moving personnel around, offices around, utilizing the buildings that we've got right now. This is the ideal time to get this in place, because we're going to be paying for installation of equipment, secondary PSAP. And if we're replacing primary PSAP equipment, which needs to be replaced, a lot of it is beyond its life cycle. They're backup radios. Just to give you an example of what I'm trying to convey to you. If that computer goes down and it is a Vista system, no longer supported by Microsoft, whenever it crashed on me, whenever I was working, and I called the technical support, they told me that they did not touch it. It was not supported by Microsoft. They recommended I turn the computer off and turn it back on, and hopefully it would reboot, and it did. If that had not come up, the backup communications for your EMS, fire, highway patrol, all of your health and safety is handheld radios, some of which they have to go outside to operate. Now, this is how critical it is. We are living on a shoestring, in my professional opinion.
Just to clarify, what you're talking about is two separate projects.
It is two
Backup
separate
system
projects, yes.
is one that we've got, that
And
we're
we-
working on and that we're negotiating with.
Right. Mapping out the project now, the full project, is a good idea.
Right.
We have the hard deadline for part of it is June 30th. The
Right.
rest of it can spill over a year or two if necessary. But I think it's important we get the roadmap built while we're in the middle of the other projects.
Right.
So.
Okay. Any other questions?
I would like for everyone to get a copy of the study so that they can have it, that the recommendations that came in, so that they can see they have a rough guesstimate on funding and also the equipment.
So the other good news financially was we can lease the equipment, the new equipment, that'll be covered. It's funny, we borrow the money to pay for it, the loan would not be chargeable to 911, but we can just lease the equipment, which with electronic equipment probably makes a lot of sense anyway. So we're gonna get purchase and lease options. We wanna get a system that will last for several years, but of course we have limited funds, so we're gonna be working on some different options there.
We also have, if I may interject,
Please.
as far as communications, mobile communications on towers in the county, that they feel would give us better coverage, and they are working up a proposal for the deficiencies in the communications in the community, so that they will present that. And with what we're paying for a tower rental right now, I believe that we can save some money in that regard also.